What is up, everybody? Purple and Gold podcast for Monday, March 16th. LSU salvages game 3 of the series. They beat Vandy 16-9, and the LSU women's basketball team is a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. Let's start with the baseball. Tigers do lose 2 out of 3. Do win yesterday's game 16-9. They did fall. The D1 baseball top 25 came out about 30 minutes ago. They did fall out of the top 25. LSU got off to a 6-0 lead yesterday. Vanderbilt starter Nate Taylor was terrible. Walked Stephen Milam to lead off the game. It was hit by pitch after that. LSU scored 4 runs in the first inning on the benefit of 1 hit. LSU was up 6-0. William Schmidt gave up a solo home run. It was 6-1. In the 5th inning, things kind of came unraveled. And when that inning was over, William Schmidt was out of the game. Looked like he was nursing a little bit of something in his back. Jay Johnson said after the game he was fine, though. They just chose to take him out. He was losing steam, and of course he's so important to the team the rest of this season and next. LSU didn't capitalize in the top of the 6th, and then Vanderbilt tied the game, and it was 6-6 at the end of 6. And I know a lot of LSU fans were thinking, here we go again. Maverick Rizzi wasn't great out of LSU's bullpen. Devin Sheeran came in and stabilized it a bit. Santiago Garcia as well. And then LSU finally was able to get Vanderbilt reliever Brandon Cyber out of the game. He sort of fell apart in the top of the 7th. LSU took a 7-6 lead. They had 2 on. Vandy went to a lefty reliever, left on left, and Jake Brown hit a 3-run homer. It was 10-6. LSU would tack on another run. It was then 11-6. Vandy did hit a 3-run homer off Devin Sheeran in the bottom of the 7th, and it was 11-9, but Sheeran stabilized it after that. LSU went on to score some more runs, pile on, tack on. Vandy's pitching staff was just about done for, and LSU wins the game 16-9. So takeaways from the weekend are that LSU has a lot of work to do, and I guess the falling out of the top 25 is sort of the symbolic, rock bottom, if you want to call it that, of the last couple of weeks. Baseball is a funny sport, though, in the sense that you play so many games and there are so many moments, right? So I thought it was a nice response yesterday from LSU after they had given up the lead to mount the offense that they did in the 7th and 8th innings, and 7th, 8th, and 9th innings to make sure they got that series win. And I mean, honestly, we're 1 pitch away on Friday night. If that's a ground ball at a second baseman and not a walk-off home run, LSU wins 2 out of 3, and they're probably ranked 19 or 20 in the country. And you walk away saying, yeah, we have work to do, but it's a totally different feel. But LSU didn't win the game Friday night, and they had a listless performance on Saturday, and that's been sort of the negative for me about this team. You can talk about all the baseball stuff, the slumps, the guys not hitting out of the transfer portal. The bullpen is not what we thought it was, although there were some signs of life in the bullpen, which I think maybe I'll talk about on tomorrow's show. You could talk about all the baseball stuff and how disappointing LSU's 14-7 record is. To me, it's been the response in some of these games. After the Northeastern loss, you thought there would have been a better response against ULL. You thought there would have been a better response in the Sunday game against Sacramento State after they lost that game and the series was on the line. You thought they would have came out with their hair on fire against Creighton, and they didn't, right? It was more of the same, and then Cerna had to hit a grand slam late. To me, that's been the sort of negative of this team through 21 games. So let's talk a little bit about what he did with the lineup, what Jay did with the lineup yesterday. So he stayed with Milam, Brown, Curiel at the top, and I think they're settling in on that now. Aaron Beatty batted fourth. Omar Cerna was the DH yesterday, which he had another productive day. He didn't have a ton to show for it, but I thought he had some good at-bats. I thought he had a good at-bat on Saturday night, the 2-run single with the bases loaded. I think Omar Cerna, there's been some growth there the last week or 10 days or so. And he had John Pearson at third. John Pearson did a good job at third base, handled a few plays that he could handle, and also had, he was on base. I think he got hit by a pitch once. He had a double. He was part of the offense. It'll be interesting to see going forward. Now that Chris Stanfield is back, you obviously don't have that rotation of players in left field. So the question is, how does Jay want to do this, right? Now, the last 2 days, Cerna on Saturday caught, Aaron Beatty was the DH. Yesterday, Aaron Beatty caught, and Cerna was the DH. If that is the plan moving forward, then you've now sort of eliminated DH from the rotation of players. Whether that is the plan or not, I don't think you'll see a cast of characters anymore at DH. I think it's time to close in ranks. I said this last week, and I think it's time to get down to maybe 11 or so guys, maybe 12, that are going to be parts of this, right? And that's not counting, you want to bring in Jack Ruckert at the end of the game for defense, fine. I'm talking about the guys who you would consider starting in a game. And so it'll be interesting to see if they can take a day off here, maybe get Trent Carraway in the cage, try to fix him a little bit, right? Try to get Seth Dardar going. Zach York, I think LSU is going to stay with him at first base, and I think they're going to try to get him out of whatever funk this is. And I think dropping him down in the order is just more where he needs to hit. So I think you'll see Aaron Beatty and Cerna bat, in that 4-5-ish range. And it'll also be interesting to see. Jay did say that before the season started, the plan was for Chris Stanfield to lead off. Is that still the plan? Stanfield had a really nice weekend in the 9-hole. He was a really productive hitter last year from the 9-hole. Do you leave him there and have him operate like a second leadoff man? Do you bump him up to 1, then go Brown 2, Curiel 3? That would leave you Milam to bat somewhere in the middle. That'll be interesting to see. I personally think he'll leave Stanfield 9 for the time being. So you've got 9, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 would be Aaron Beatty. And so then you're just mixing in those guys 5 through 8. So the guys that I think are on the cusp of losing some playing time, it'll be interesting to see how much playing time Mason Braun gets now. It'll be interesting to see how much playing time Trent Carraway gets. Is that something they're looking to do? Are they looking for John Pearson at third base? And then how do they match up at DH relative to what they do at catcher? So LSU gets Grambling tomorrow night, and then Oklahoma, who is the number 8 team in the country. They took 2 out of 3 at home against Texas A&M. But again, they won a wild game yesterday, 12-11. So, these SEC series were crazy. I'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow too, before we preview Grambling. So look, you get 1 out of 3, a lot of work to do. It's not a good pitching staff right now. It's not a good baseball team right now, but you do feel better about it getting the win yesterday, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night when LSU plays Grambling. On to women's basketball. LSU got the expected 2 seed. They'll play the 15 seed Jacksonville on Friday at 5 p.m. The other 2 teams that are in Baton Rouge are the 7th seeded Texas Tech Red Raiders and the 10th seeded Villanova Wildcats. LSU should be heavy favorites to get to the Sweet 16. The 3 seed in that regional is Duke. LSU beat Duke back in December at Duke in the SEC ACC Challenge. Duke did go on to at one point win like 15, 16, 17 games in a row though. So they would be a formidable 3 seed. That would be in Sacramento. I know LSU wanted Fort Worth, but they'd be in Sacramento. Baylor's the 6th seed in this regional. If Baylor got out of Duke's regional, then you could possibly have Kim Mulkey face her old school. More than likely, you're looking at LSU Duke in the Sweet 16. UCLA is the 1 seed in this regional. So more than likely for LSU to get to the Final Four, they would have to beat UCLA and Lauren Betts in Sacramento, which is probably a tall order. My initial gut reaction is I think LSU makes the grade 8 and probably bows out in what would be a rubber match against UCLA. LSU beat UCLA a couple of years ago. UCLA beat LSU in last year's NCAA tournament. So, Lady Tigers get underway at 5 o'clock on Friday. Before we get out of here, I do want to mention, too, Will Wade and his NC State basketball team. They did make the NCAA tournament. However, not as the expected 10 seed that most bracketologists had them as. They are an 11 seed, and they are playing in the first 4 in Dayton, Ohio, tomorrow night against Texas. I think if you're an LSU basketball fan and you have any hope of getting Will Wade back, I think you root for Texas tomorrow night. The earlier the better that Will Wade would potentially be available, and this whole Matt McMahon, Will Wade saga would not bleed into the weekend or next week or leave Matt McMahon in some sort of weeks-long limbo. Conceivably, NC State's season could be over tomorrow night. So just something to keep an eye on. Paul Skeens did pitch for Team USA last night. They were able to hold on in the World Baseball Classic against the Dominican Republic, and so they will play in the championship game tomorrow night. Alex Bregman and Paul Skeens, of course, are members of Team USA, so good luck to them. We'll be watching that, and we'll be watching the first 4, and we'll be watching LSU and Grambling, and we'll be back tomorrow to talk about all of it. As always, have a great week. As always, be good to one another, and always, 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 go Tigers.